I caught it. That split-second flicker in Camille's eyes. The way she glanced from my mug to her phone, like she was checking a box on some mental list. She set the cup down in front of me with a smile so sweet it would have fooled anyone else. "Drink up, honey," she said, her voice dripping with that same syrupy tone she always used when she wanted me to relax. To trust her? Our mugs were a matched set, honeymoon souvenirs from Florence. But even those have become props in our marriage, just like the fake smiles and empty conversations. Hers had a little red heart on the side, a reminder of a time I thought was real. Mine had the skyline of Florence etched into the ceramic, the cityscape we'd promised each other we'd return to one day. But that day never came. I picked up the mug, felt the warmth against my palm. Camille busied herself with her phone, thumbs dancing, her lips pressed together in a tight line. That's when I caught a glimpse of her screen. A message. From Wesley, her so-called project manager. "This incompetent will finally embarrass himself." She typed it in a hurry, probably thinking I wouldn't see. But I saw. And the way she looked at me afterward, like I was too clueless to notice, that's what cut the deepest. I smiled at her anyway, because that's what I learned to do. "Thanks, babe," I said, playing the part of the grateful husband. She barely looked up, eyes glued to that glowing rectangle of betrayal. Then she stood, phone in hand, and headed to the bathroom. The door clicked shut behind her. My fingers went cold. I'd spent the past 6 months building this pitch. Every late night and early morning poured into a deck that could change everything. For us, for Westbridge Strategies, for our future. But that message from Wesley made it clear that Camille had other plans. I knew what she was thinking. Sabotage. If I stumbled today, if I choked in front of the Vailrest Holdings team, she could sweep in and save the presentation. It would be her shining moment, the moment she proved she was the real power behind the firm. But she underestimated me. She always had. I set my mug down, watching the steam curl upward like a warning. Then, I reached for her mug, the one with the red heart. It was still warm. The black coffee inside glistened beneath the kitchen lights. I thought about all the times I'd carried this firm, how I'd written every framework and designed every strategy, while Camille played politics with people like Wesley. Thought about how many times she'd smiled sweetly at me while slipping the knife between my ribs. And I thought about how I'd always forgiven her, or at least pretended to, because that's what you're supposed to do when you're building something together. Not today. With one fluid motion, I switched the mugs. My reflection in the dark surface of the coffee looked different than it used to. Harder, sharper. A man who'd been forced to evolve, the man she tried to break, but had instead taught to be unbreakable. Didn't know what she'd slipped into that cup. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. But I wasn't going to find out the hard way. The bathroom door creaked open, and she stepped out, all soft edges and that practiced smile. She didn't even glance at the mugs as she walked past me and picked up her cup. My cup. She lifted it to her lips without hesitation, like she couldn't imagine that I might have seen through her. "So," she said, settling back into her chair, "are you ready for today's meeting?" Her eyes glinted with a challenge. I gave her the calmest smile I could muster. "Absolutely," I said. "I've never been more ready." I watched her take that first sip. The faintest line of confusion crossed her features. She licked her lips, eyes darting to her phone. I wondered if Wesley had texted her some final instructions. I wondered what he'd promised her. A bigger role? A new title? Maybe a life without me. But as I watched her, I realized it didn't matter anymore. I'd spent too long trying to build something with someone who'd been waiting for me to fail. Every late night she'd spent working had been another rehearsal for this moment. Every smile she'd given me had been another lie. And now, with the biggest meeting of our lives looming, she was finally showing her hand. I let her talk. Let her pretend that everything was normal. She rattled on about slide transitions and brand positioning, about the questions Jonas Hart might ask, and how to handle Leona Patel's aggressive style. But I barely heard her. My mind was already in the meeting room, already rehearsing the answers to questions I knew would come. I'd always known what to say when it mattered. I just hadn't realized until now that the biggest question would come from her. As she drained the mug, I saw it. That flicker of unease. The way she blinked twice in quick succession, like she was trying to clear her head. She set the cup down with a small frown, fingers brushing the ceramic, as if she wasn't sure she'd picked up the right one. "You okay?" I asked, voice soft, almost gentle. She looked at me like she wanted to scream but couldn't. "Yeah," she said, but her voice sounded distant. She blinked again. "Just tired, I guess." I reached across the table, my hand warm against hers. "Big day," I said. "We've got this." She smiled, a small, tight thing that didn't reach her eyes. Then she stood, pulling on her blazer with practiced movements. "Yeah," she repeated. "We've got this." But she didn't sound sure, and as I picked up the black mug, her mug, and took that first sip, I tasted something else besides bitterness. I tasted victory, sharp and undeniable. One sip at a time. I thought, one sip at a time. I let her walk ahead of me toward the door. She didn't look back. Maybe she knew. Maybe she didn't. Either way, the game had changed. And this time, I wasn't the incompetent. I was the man she taught to see. The knives before they landed, and I was ready to use them. Show them who the real architect was. 30 minutes. That's all I had to prove that no matter what plan she and Wesley had cooked up, I was the one holding the map. And in that moment, with the board nodding in approval, and Camille slumped in her chair, I felt the truth settle in my bones. She'd wanted me to fail, but she'd forgotten one simple fact. I knew the game, and I just won. I took a deep breath, steadying myself, as I advanced to the next slide. Camille had planned for this part of the presentation to be her moment to shine, her ace in the hole. The slide sheet, so carefully curated, a tangled mess of buzzwords, flowcharts, and graphs, was supposed to trip me up. It was designed to look impressive, while being